well, very few young women who are taking up this tradition. And so the current average age of the Henyo divers is around 70 years old.
And I'm telling you, he is quick and he can hold his breath for a long ass time.
They called it impossible, a biological anomaly that defied every textbook. When the research team first arrived, they thought it was equipment failure. But when the readings held steady, when the data kept coming back the same, they knew they'd stumbled into something that would rewrite human evolution. What they found wasn't just extraordinary, it was so unprecedented that some scientists refused to continue the study. This is the story of the tribes that made researchers question everything they knew about human limits. Number 11. The Bahau and Moken, the ocean's children. The helicopter descended over the Coral Triangle, and Dr. Melissa Ilardo's hands were shaking. Not from nerves, from what her scanner was showing. She'd spent years studying human adaptation, but nothing prepared her for this. The Bahau diver below wasn't just holding his breath. He'd been underwater for over 5 minutes at 30 meters depth, and his vitals were impossible. When the 2018 Cell Journal publication hit, the scientific community erupted. The Bahau people possess spleens 50% larger than neighboring populations, not from disease, not from anomaly, but from evolution happening in real time. A genetic signal near PDE10A was actively growing their spleens, creating biological superhumans who could do what should kill anyone else. But the real shock came from the Moken children. Researcher Anna Gislen's team brought standard vision equipment to test underwater clarity. European children could barely make out shapes. Moken children read test charts with crystal precision. Their pupils contracted to 1.9 meters, beyond what medical science considered the human minimum. Their eye lenses stretched to 15 to 16 diopters, shattering the supposed limits of human optics. Then came December 26, 2004. While the world's best seismologists were still analyzing data, the Moken elders were already moving their people to high ground. "The ocean is our universe," they said. Not one Moken life was lost when the tsunami struck. They didn't have technology. They had something science couldn't measure, until now. Number 10. The Maasai, defying metabolic physics. The medical team arrived at the settlement with standard equipment and textbook assumptions. What they found made them call for backup. These people were consuming 600 to 2,000 ml of cholesterol daily, amounts that should have resulted in catastrophic heart disease. Instead, their cardiovascular systems were pristine. The Adumu jumping ceremony looked like ritual. It was actually a physiological phenomenon, warriors leaping 50-60 meters straight up, for hours, without modern training. When researchers finally published their findings in PLOS1 in 2012, they'd identified genetic selection in FABP1, genes that processed fat in ways that rewrote nutritional science. But here's what made scientists step back. This wasn't just genetics. The Maasai were actively evolving while maintaining ancient tradition. In 2010, the Lion Guardians program revealed they could shift from warrior culture to conservation without losing their biological edge. They held tradition in one hand and adaptation in the other, a feat anthropologists said was impossible. Number 9. The Sentinelese, the untouchable enigma. November 2018, John Allen Chow's body was never recovered. India didn't even try. Because approaching North Sentinel Island isn't just illegal, it's potentially genocidal. These people possess something so rare, so precious, that contact itself is a death sentence. Not for the visitor, for them. Since 1956, this 60 square kilometer island has been sealed. Not by walls, but by law and arrows. When the 2004 tsunami struck and helicopters dropped aid, a lone figure stepped onto the beach, drew his bow, and fired. His message was clear: "We are alive, leave us be." Scientists watching from offshore documented something that still haunts research journals. When the ocean pulled back before the tsunami, the Sentinelese moved to high ground. No warning system, no satellite data, they just knew. Estimates put their population anywhere from a handful to over 100. But that uncertainty is the point. They are the last untouched tribe on Earth, and their immunity, or lack thereof, to modern diseases makes them simultaneously the most vulnerable and most valuable anthropological subjects alive. Researchers who've observed from legal distances describe burial rituals, family structures, and fire use that suggest sophisticated culture, not savagery, survival. The real question that made some scientists step away from the research: do we have the right to know? Number 8. The Korowai, engineering the impossible. When Peter Van Arsdale's team pushed through the Papua jungle in March 1974, they thought the initial reports were exaggerated. Then they looked up, 40 meters up. Entire villages suspended in the canopy, built without blueprints, without engineering degrees, without equipment beyond rope and memory. The Korowai Rumatingi aren't just houses, they're architectural impossibilities. Men climb barefoot, hauling ridge beams that would require cranes in modern construction. Whole families relocate within days, rebuilding from nothing but sago palm and rattan. Helicopter surveys between 1986 and 1990 mapped roughly 4,000 speakers across clanlands, each settlement a physics-defying marvel. Here's what made researchers uncomfortable. Western contact was recent, but the skills were ancient. This wasn't learned from books or borrowed from neighbors. This was instinctive engineering passed through generations, suggesting neurological pathways for spatial reasoning that standard human development models couldn't explain. The 2018 BBC admission that certain treehouse scenes were staged only deepened the mystery. If they had to fake footage because the real thing was too unbelievable, what else had cameras missed? Number 7. Tibetans and Sherpa, genetic time bombs. When the 2014 Nature publication dropped, geneticists went silent. Then the argument started. Tibetans carried a gene variant, EPAS1, inherited from Denisovans, not cousins of Denisovans. Direct genetic transfer from an extinct human species. This wasn't adaptation. This was evolution through ancient hybridization, preserved across millennia. At altitudes where oxygen is half of sea level, their blood stays thin, flows fast, and never clots. Normal humans would die. Tibetans thrive. Elite Sherpa climbers show VO2 max readings of 66.7 pq at sea level, numbers that make Olympic athletes look average. But the data that made researchers call emergency meetings came from muscle biopsies. Under high-altitude stress, Sherpa muscles don't just cope, they transform. GCH1 genes regulate nitric oxide, expanding blood vessels to deliver more oxygen without producing more blood. It's like their bodies rewrote the rules of cellular respiration. When Kami Rita summited Everest for the 31st time on May 27, 2025, his heart rate was steady. His oxygen use was minimal. He wasn't conquering the mountain. He was strolling through his natural habitat. The question that haunted the research team: if this much evolution happened in 25,000 years, what are humans capable of becoming? Number 6. The Himba, chemistry and culture. The dermatology team thought they were studying primitive skincare. Instead, they discovered a pharmaceutical compound applied daily by women who'd never seen a chemistry lab. Otjais, butter fat mixed with red ochre rich in hematite, blocks UV radiation at levels that make modern sunscreens look like baby oil. But the real discovery that made cosmetic scientists rethink everything came from the smoke baths. In water-scarce deserts, Himba women cleanse with smoke from a mumbi resin and desert herbs. Laboratory analysis revealed antibacterial properties that rivaled commercial antiseptics. These weren't beauty rituals. They were advanced medical treatments disguised as tradition. The color vision controversy added another layer. When Debbie Robertson's studies showed Himba color categorization differed from European models, critics claimed biological difference. The truth was more unsettling. Their brains had literally rewired visual processing through cultural language patterns, nurture changing nature at the neurological level. Number 5. The Sami, surviving the unsurvivable. Across the frozen belt of northern Europe, where winter cold should make human habitation impossible, 80,000 to 135,000. Sami don't just survive, they flourish, following 250,000 reindeer herds through lands where others see only ice and death. The Joik singing tradition looked like folk music until neuroscience got involved. Studies revealed Joik actively reduces cortisol, regulates heart rate variability, and strengthens neural pathways associated with memory and identity. It wasn't entertainment, it was medicine passed through melody, a psychological survival mechanism encoded in harmony. But what made anthropologists evacuate their preconceptions came from historical records. In the 1600s, Sami shamans, the Noaidi, were systematically hunted. Their drums were seized. Their practices were criminalized. Yet the culture not only survived, it thrived. This level of cultural resilience suggested social structures that modern sociology couldn't fully explain. Number 4. The Brogpa, flowers against extinction. In Ladakh's Indus Valley, where altitude cuts oxygen to dangerous levels, fewer than 4,000 Brogpa remain. Their language, Brokskat, has under 500 active speakers. They should be extinct. Instead, they're radiant. The 2019 genetic study shattered the Aryan myth, but revealed something more shocking. Their DNA showed adaptation patterns unique to extreme altitude populations, yet different from neighboring Tibetans. Parallel evolution in the same mountain range, suggesting multiple pathways to high-altitude survival that science hadn't predicted. Their TPPI headdresses aren't decoration. They're silver coins and orange blossoms arranged in patterns that researchers found serve as social documentation, tracking lineage and tribal history without written language. The Bona Harvest celebration every few years involves an Alava spirit medium who fasts and enters trance states that EEG studies showed produce brainwave patterns associated with extreme meditation. The real anomaly. In a dying language with under 500 speakers, every child still learns the old songs. They're not preserving culture. They're actively defying linguistic extinction in real time. Number 3. The Kalenjin, the running anomaly. The statistics are so extreme, they look like data errors. The Kalenjin represent roughly 10% of Kenya's population, but hold over 80% of the nation's distance running medals. This isn't talent distribution. This is biological outlier territory. Vincent Oniwera and Yannis Pitsiladis spent years trying to crack the code. What they found rewrote exercise physiology. Even untrained Kalenjin boys show oxygen efficiency during running that trained athletes from other populations can't achieve. Their bodies burn less fuel to go farther, a metabolic advantage that should be impossible without training. Born at 2,400 meters in towns like Aitan, they don't train at altitude, they live there. Their lungs, their blood, their muscles adapted before they took their first training run. Studies measuring limb length, frame density, and stride efficiency kept pointing to the same conclusion. This population possessed a cluster of genetic advantages that appeared simultaneously, suggesting rapid recent selection. Lorna Kiplagat said it plainly. When you train at 2,400 meters and race low, you feel like you're flying. But researchers measuring her VO2 max and lactate threshold discovered she wasn't exaggerating. Her physiology at sea level showed oxygen availability that exceeded what human lungs should be capable of delivering. Number 2. The Zangbeto, the consciousness. Question. When anthropologists began serious field study in Benin, Togo, and Nigeria, they approached the Zangbeto as performance art. Then things got strange. The 2013 interviews in Badagry revealed these weren't actors. They were a functioning security and justice system that predated colonial governments. Each January during Vodun Day and the Ouida Festival, the Zangbeto emerge, spinning masses of raffia that move with purpose, settle disputes, present criminals for judgment, and maintain order without modern law enforcement. Scientists watching their movements noted biomechanical patterns that suggested extensive training. But training in what? No one admits to being beneath the costume. The 2018 shift to environmental protection raised new questions. Zangbeto began patrolling mangroves, deterring illegal logging and overfishing. How does a spiritual tradition adapt to modern conservation needs while maintaining ancient ritual? Scholars documented it happening, but couldn't explain the mechanism. Funso's research paper concluded, the Zangbeto represent a form of collective consciousness that Western science lacks the framework to study. That conclusion made peer review uncomfortable. Some researchers quietly withdrew from the project. Number 1. The Saka, Breaking Thermodynamics, February 6, 1933, Yakutia, Siberia. The temperature hit 67.7 degrees Celsius. At those temperatures, exposed skin freezes in under a minute. Breath crystallizes before leaving your mouth. Standard human survival is measured in minutes. The Saka sang songs to the sky. Nearly 500,000 Saka live in the Republic of Saka, thriving where thermodynamics says human life should be impossible. The 2022 and 2025 genetic studies found selection in TBX15, WARN2, and UCP genes. But the researchers noted something that made them question their own data. These genes didn't just help with cold tolerance. They actively generated heat through brown fat activation at levels that exceeded laboratory predictions. Their Yakutian horses endure temperature swings of over 100 degrees throughout the year, digging through snow at 60 degrees C. Genetic analysis revealed fatty acid profiles that shouldn't exist in nature, suggesting either rapid recent evolution or an adaptation pathway science hasn't documented in other species. But the detail that made the research team step back came from studying their epic poems, the Olonko. UNESCO declared it a masterpiece in 2005, but when linguists analyzed the texts, they found embedded environmental data going back centuries. Star patterns, weather predictions, animal migration routes, all encoded in oral poetry passed through generations with accuracy that rivals written records. The Aizyak Summer Festival isn't celebration. It's data transmission disguised as ritual. When elders pour kumis to the heavens and chant, they're not praying, they're teaching survival through story, maintaining a cultural database that has preserved knowledge longer than most civilizations have existed. The evacuation. What made scientists step away from these studies wasn't danger, it was implication. Each tribe revealed human capabilities that shouldn't exist according to our models. Genetic changes happening in real time, cultural knowledge that predicts disasters before technology can, biological advantages appearing without clear evolutionary pressure. The question researchers couldn't answer: are we studying the past or glimpsing the future? Are these tribes evolutionary outliers, or are they showing us what humanity is still capable of becoming? Subscribe to dive deeper into the anomalies that science can't explain. Drop your theory in the comments. What do you think is really happening with these tribes?